This discusses the 7th season finale of Game of Thrones. So many spoilers. Sunday, August 27th, night concluded a messy, narratively discombobulated season of Game of Thrones. It's been a season of Deus Ex Machina rescues, previously unimaginably fast travel and message sending, and at least 2 or 3 emotional reunions every episode, each drawn out in the hopes of forcing fans to use as many exclamation points as possible in their tweets. It's also been a season of smart characters losing all sense of strategy and common sense just because strategy and common sense might lead to a slower, more deliberate pace. For 6 seasons, I don't know that I ever thought Game of Thrones was dumb, but this season it often has been. Sunday night also concluded what may be the most epic season of Game of Thrones yet. In the finale, the dragon and the wolf combined spectacle and character in a way that most of this season has failed to do. It was still a clumsily structured episode in which one scene after another produced a wait, that doesn't make sense head scratch followed by oh, that's because it was a twist follow through. It also had a few too many moments that were satisfying in fan service ways, but damned if it wasn't still satisfying as heck, and that's how Game of Thrones needed to end this season. Last week's episode was the season in miniature. Penultimate episodes have generally been standouts for Game of Thrones. Baelor, Blackwater, the Reigns of Castamere, the Watchers on the Wall, the Battle of the Bastards. Those are iconic episodes for fans. Instead, we got what was perhaps the most infuriating of the show's nearly 70 episodes. The Lord of the Rings style mission north of the Wall was already a dumb idea. Why send a squad of mostly recognizable characters, several with key leadership positions or genetic proximity to several royal lines, out into the unknown to kidnap a single zombie with no awareness of the force they were going to be facing? It was way too convenient that the crew included 4 or 5 virtually nameless figures to be devoured by zombie polar bears and the like. Then, in a season of time and geographic cheating, we had Gendry sprint back to the wall, send a raven, and Dany and her dragons were able to come to the rescue within the space of a single rough night with our heroes surrounded by zombies. The show's first 6 seasons were basically just an extremely slow mobilizing of forces to get Dany to the other side of the season, and the whole point was that nothing in Westeros, including the arrival of winter, came quickly. Suddenly, the journey is nothing and process was thrown out the window and Game of Thrones became a different show, and that doesn't mean that Game of Thrones wasn't entitled to become that different show, and it doesn't mean that Game of Thrones wasn't always gradually becoming that different show. But that doesn't mean I can't prefer the show it was in the beginning. Note, I understand that White Walkers and Whites are different and that none of them are technically zombies, but if you want well-reasoned, accurate Game of Thrones coverage, read THR's awesome Josh Wigler. I'm just a TV critic who sometimes loves this show and sometimes doesn't. Anyway, if the trip was that short by dragon, why didn't Jon convince Dany to fly up and back in a few hours, spot the zombies below, maybe grab one in a net of some sort, and return? Dany sees her zombies. No red shirts had to die. No dragon had to die. No intelligence had to be insulted. And then, as if we hadn't had enough Deus Ex Machina, Uncle Benjen had to come to rescue Jon, having not been even mentioned at any point previously this season. Narratively, the penultimate episode was just horrible, and that's before we get to whether the interactions between Sansa and Arya are believable as character choices rather than just suspenseful plot devices. I accept that the characters have been through a lot and were already at each other's throats before they were separated, and each had to learn the darkness they were capable of. They've always had different approaches to the world, so I can accept a fair amount of distrust between them, even if what we've gotten is really heightened. That's before you get to what happened in the finale. But for all of the awfulness, I'm not going to pretend that the approaching rings of zombies closing in on the merry band of kidnappers, crashing through the ice, but not knowing any better, wasn't pretty cool, nor that I've become immune to mass dragon-based slaughter, even if we've seen the same thing a couple times this season. And the zombie polar bears whetted my appetite for AMC's The Terror, which will premiere at some point this winter, I'd imagine. And even though the last shot with the dragon's eye gone zombie blue was completely predictable, I still got chills, and I had high hopes this episode would begin with the Night King sending a note to